Hey, hey, how is everyone doing? I got on here because there was a shooting in DC, and I wanted to jump on here and kind of get into what actually occurred here. So give me a second. I'm going to share my screen. Looks like they may have caught whoever did it, but let's get into it.
JD Vance just came on stage. He is spending time with the troops. We want to see his comments right off the top. Let's listen in.
Beautiful Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And let me just say, I want to say first, before we get started, on a somber note, we had, and some of you may have seen this on your phones or on social media, but apparently there was a shooting outside the White House just a couple of hours ago. And we're still learning everything. We still don't know the motive. There's a lot that we haven't yet figured out. But what we do know is that a couple of National Guardsmen were injured in the line of duty. And first of all, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those two National Guardsmen, that they're able to spend Thanksgiving with their families instead of losing their lives, because I understand they're still in pretty tough condition. But I think it's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the business of the Army and about what you're doing and about why it's important to the United States of America and why every single one of our soldiers here in Fort Campbell.
All right, Vice President J.D. Vance speaking in Kentucky as he was meeting with troops earlier today, spending time with.
Excuse me, there has been a shooting. I thought that he was going to give a better update. So he actually was pretty much addressing what had already happened. So let me just bring up a different clip because that wasn't a good one at all. So there has been a shooting, y'all, and it's been all over the news. I'm going to get into this one. This is a better clip. Just give me a second here. This is a better clip that I found.
Bring in our Jay and Brian, who's there on the scene. You have some other witnesses, I am told. Jay, I know our photographer, Chris Plater, Jay, was there on the scene getting pictures even of those National Guard members on the ground getting worked on by EMS. Let me know if we can talk to him. Tell me who you've been talking to. Who's with you, Jay?
So we've got a number of eyewitnesses here lined up for you. One of them is Chris. Kira, we're going to go to him in a moment. But first, I want to bring in Stacy Walters here, a Howard student who was in an Uber when you heard some of these shots. Howard alum. Yeah. You were in an Uber when you heard some of the shots. Is that right? Yes. Walk us through. So you're in the car. You hear the shots. What happened?
I was in the Uber. I heard boom, boom twice. I was looking at my cell phone, and the Uber driver said, "Why are all these people running?" So then I looked out the window, and it was little children. They looked probably about 5 years old on both sides of the street running, and adults. And whoever was supervising the children said, "Go, go, run." Then I heard someone yell, "Help, help," in the direction of the shooting. But I didn't see who yelled help. I don't know if it was the individual who was shot or someone yelling for help for the individual. We're on 17th Street Northwest. So I knew I wanted to research later. So I asked the Uber driver, what's the cross street? But he didn't know. And I was just at lunch going to the dry cleaners. And then the guards, I don't know if they're guards, Secret Service, but their uniform map definitely looked government level, said you have to turn around. So you have to turn around. And that was around 2:15 p.m.
Stacy, compared to where we are now, right, using this as our place, where were you approximately when you heard these shots?
That's the thing. I never paid attention. We were turning on to 17th Street.
Okay.
Because that's why I even asked the driver.
So you were down the street turning onto this street.
We were so close that the shooting had just happened in the road. They had just, they were still letting people through. But by the time they got to us, they said, you have to turn around.
When you saw those people running, What went through your mind?
The children. They were little children. And it's such a beautiful day. You know, that's the first thing I thought about. Like, who would do this? It's getting ready to be the holidays, and so many children. They just weren't on one side of the road. They were on both sides of the road. Little children running.
When you heard those pops, as you described, did you immediately think it was a shooting?
No, I'm originally from Connecticut. I only came to DC for Howard University. I'm in the suburbs. Like, I've never been so close to anything like this. I didn't even know there were gunshots. All I know, I heard boom, boom 2 times.
Stacey Walters, thank you so much
You
for
are
your time. I
welcome.
really appreciate it.
Yes.
Kira, if you will indulge me here, I'm also going to bring in Chris Plater, who's been behind the camera for all of this coverage here. It was Chris Plater who was walking back to work at our ABC bureau, which is just a few blocks away, who heard that gunfire, and then he saw what appears to be those National Guards members wounded lying there on the ground. I want to bring Chris in here as he steps around the camera. And Chris, you've been with us for the entire day. It was you who called this in to our bureau. What did you see at first? What did you hear?
Okay, so I it's what I heard first, and what I heard were, like pop, pop, pop. It could have been a steel plate or something. There's a lot of construction and things going around, so I just thought that maybe it was some plates going on or something like that. But then boom, 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 and so I'm starting to hear these big guns. I'm like, okay, this is something's going on. So people at first were a little shocked. It was stuff like, is that construction? And so some people kind of jogged a little bit. And then when those big booms started happening, people started clearing out like, yo, this is a little bit serious. This is shooting. There's something bad going on here. So immediately I went forward to see what was going on. And as you see in the video, I see 2 National Guard members down. And people are working on them,
Providing first aid.
There was, some police officers that came a little later. It was kind of strange because it seemed like it took like 25 to 35 seconds for any police to respond. When you think about where we are, the White House, so close. And so that's when I was like, could it really be? But it really was. These National Guard members were down.
So, Chris, in relation to where we're standing now, we're across the street from the metro station. Can you describe where you saw the activity and what you saw where in relation to where we are here?
Okay, so where we are right now, I came up and crossed the street.
So you were you were a block away on the other side of the street.
I was right here at the Metro stop.
Yeah.
I went over there to see what was going on, and that's where you see the video. I began videotaping, and they at some point got to clear us out and move us back here on this corner here. And so then I continued shooting and waiting, and that's when the police were responding and everything. So it was just all here, just a lot of people just running, the opposite way, through the park. And past me, and there were some people that were, one person said something like, man, the guy went up there and started shooting at the National Guard. I didn't get to talk to him. I didn't get to, know who he was, but it sounded like he suggested that somebody went up and started shooting at the National Guard.
So, Chris, just to walk back a second here, one of the things you saw was very graphic, and we have to describe it with care here, but you did see, and you videotaped, one of or both of those National Guardsmen having first aid provided onto them lying on the street. Is that correct?
Yeah, one National Guard was lying on his side. They were rendering aid to him. He wasn't moving, but he was on his side. And then I looked at the other National Guard member that was down, and I saw compressions going on. There was a lot of people around there, so I don't think it was the person that done the shooting. And all I could tell you is that I identified 2 National Guard members that were being worked on. Eventually, the one National Guard that was on his side, he got to move a little bit while he was on his side, and they were still, working with him. But the other National Guard member, I just saw compression going on with him in the chest area, and that's all I can tell you.
Chris Plater, my dear friend who's been behind the camera with me over the course of the day. Thank you, sir. And Kira, if you want to just stay with us for 1 second, because Chris is now going to go back to the other side of the camera and just show you one thing that we have not seen yet before, which is the full vantage point of this scene here. As Chris and I were talking, you probably saw the fire truck that was blocking the entrance to the metro station drove away. So you can get a sense of exactly the scene that Chris was describing. It's difficult to make out where he was, but he was on the right in front of that metro stop there. That's that open door that kind of looks like a garage door. You see it there. Chris was standing there watching them perform CPR onto one of the wounded guardsmen. And then he was moved to the other side of the street, had a vantage point of the scene there, again, chaotic. And now, as we've been saying over the course of the afternoon, Kira, it's now transitioning from the immediate aftermath of the shooting where they were rendering first aid, they were loading, as we witnessed, some of these guardsmen into ambulances and speeding off. And now this investigation is well underway with DC police closing this intersection. And we saw, as I was talking to Chris, FBI agents and ATF agents walking toward that crime scene now, Kira.
All right, Jay. It's incredible, the live pictures and the details that you are bringing us. Thank you so much to Chris. It looks like there's some officers behind you that might be able to give you some information. We're going to stay close with you. But now, apparently, the President of the United States has put a statement out on Truth Social saying, without a doubt, whoever did this is going to pay a very steep price.
Wow. So I'm just, finding you guys clips. I don't know if you had the opportunity to see this earlier today, but this is more clips from this shooting that occurred in Washington, D.C.
Joined with FBI Director Kash Patel. Let's listen right now on Live Now.
They'll tell us. They're moving people still. Okay. Are we ready?
Ready. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kash Patel, FBI Director. We're here to brief you on the tragic events that happened today at approximately 2:15 local time in Washington, D.C., where two of our brave members of the National Guard and the Department of War were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act of violence. They were shot. They're in critical condition. As you can see behind me, we have assembled the full force of both the federal and state and local law enforcement agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice. Since this is an assault on a federal law enforcement officer, this will be treated at the federal level as an assault on a federal law enforcement officer. The FBI will lead out on that mission with our interagency partners, to include the Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service, ATF, DEA. And we're thankful for the mayor's assistance in this matter, the Metropolitan Police Department and their skills in investigating homicides and gun shootings in this city is exceptional. We will work together collaboratively because this is a matter of national security, because it's a matter of pride. President Trump has been informed. We've been in contact with the White House. We will shortchange the American public with no resources to make sure we find and safeguard our nation's capital right here in Washington, D.C., and bring anyone responsible for this heinous act of violence to justice. I would lastly like to add to the American public and the world, please send your prayers to those brave warriors who are in critical condition and their families. They are here serving our country. They are here protecting everyday Americans and citizens around the world in our nation's capital. They are the heroes of this day, and we must remember them on this day and every day, and their families and the sacrifice they have made. I will now turn it over to Chief Carroll of the Metropolitan Police Department. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Carroll. I'm the Executive Assistant Chief here at the Metropolitan Police Department. At approximately 2:15 this afternoon, members of the DC National Guard were on high visibility patrols in the area of 17th and I Street Northwest when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm and discharged it at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring them into custody. Within moments, members of law enforcement in the area were also able to assist and bring that individual into custody. At this time, as the director mentioned, the National Guard members are being treated at a local hospital. DC Fire and EMS responded to the scene to provide first aid for those individuals and transport them to a local hospital. The suspect in this case was also transported for treatment at a local hospital. Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., and I, too, want to send my thoughts and prayers to the families of the guardsmen and to the guardsmen who are in critical condition in a local hospital. I am joined by members and leadership from the D.C. National Guard, from the West Virginia National Guard, United States Secret Service, Deputy Mayor Pia, Fire Chief Donnelly, and Metro's General Manager Randy Clark. And we join with the FBI Director in ensuring that MPD investigates, the U.S. Attorney prosecutes this case to the fullest extent of the law. I've had the opportunity to brief U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was speaking to the president when I called, as well as the United States Attorney Pirro, who assured me that this case will have her office's complete attention.
Mayor, was there any other suspect?
Chief.
Sure. So no, at this time, there's no indication that there was any other suspect. The one suspect that was involved in this incident, they were shot during the interaction and they were transported to the hospital for treatment.
Mayor, does this validate the need for the National Guard here in D.C.?
What we know, Andrea, is that this is a targeted shooting. One individual who appeared to target these guardsmen, that individual has been taken into custody.
Mayor, can you tell us any more details on the condition of the two National Guardsmen and whether or not anyone else was injured? And a quick question follow-up for the FBI Director. You said that we'll make sure we find the perpetrators for this act. So just to clarify, the person believed to be responsible is in custody and there are no other suspects.
Sure. So I can start out again, Chief Carroll from MPD. So both the individuals, the guard members, they are in critical condition in a local hospital at this time being treated. At this point, we have no other suspects. We have reviewed video from the area. It appears, like I said, to be a lone gunman that raised a firearm and ambushed these members of the National Guard, and he was quickly taken into custody by other National Guard members and law enforcement members.
You got any sense of motive?
No, at this time, obviously, we're very in the preliminary stages of investigation. There's a lot of things, a lot of agents that are here from various federal agencies, law enforcement agencies. We have the full power of the FBI and our federal partners here in the task force. So we're looking at all those different aspects, but we don't have any motive. The National Guardsmen that were shot, I'm told they were armed.
Did they get off shots?
At this time, that's part of the preliminary investigation.
Can you explain how the suspect was apprehended?
Chief.
Sure. So how the suspect was apprehended, as I said, the individual, the suspect came around the corner. He immediately started firing a firearm at the two National Guard members. So at that time, there were other National Guard members that were in the area. They heard the gunfire. They actually were able to intervene and to kind of hold down the suspect after he had been shot on the ground until law enforcement got there within moments.
And he was shot by a National Guard.
At this point, we're still investigating exactly who shot that individual. It's not clear at this time.
Were there DC policemen in the area?
We don't know what kind of weapon. There was DC police. It happened right in front of the Metro, although there is no indication that the perpetrator was on the Metro. So there's Metro Transit Police in the area, and obviously being on 17th Street by the White House, Uniform Division of Secret Service were in the immediate area as well.
What kind of weapon the alleged perpetrator used?
We do not know at this time. It's still under
Thank you,
investigation.
Andrea. We're going to be able to take a couple more.
Has been able to question the suspect, or is his condition so severe that you haven't been able to have a conversation?
Sure. And so as I said, we're very preliminary in the investigation, so we're looking to all aspects of who the individual is, his connections. At this time, he's still in the hospital receiving treatment.
And I would just like to add, the reason that this suspect is in custody is because of the bravery of the men and women of the National Guard who responded due to their extensive training to secure American lives today. There was not any further injury and any further shootings. We should highlight the fact that the men and women of law enforcement, the interagency, the Department of War, and the National Guard executed their training with great precision today and prevented an even greater tragedy from befalling us. These National Guardsmen are heroes, and we must pray for their safety and their speedy recovery. And as the chief said, we are in the preliminary stages of this investigation. We will run down every single lead, every piece of evidence. This is the power of the U.S. government at its best at the state, local, and federal level. That is why this interagency group is standing behind us to assure America and the world that we will continue to keep DC safe. And thankfully, we have Metropolitan Police Department, the National Guardsmen, and federal agents, and the Department of Justice and Attorney General willing to prosecute the mission to keep Americans safe. And President Trump has rightly stated that this.
Oh, shut the hell up. I wish he would just shut the F up. Like, seriously. I don't know if you guys been following what's going on, but he is about to lose his job. So let's just pivot from here because nobody wants to hear from him, moron. So they are still, like I said, investigating this.
Anderson and Maurice Dubois are off tonight. I'm Jerika Duncan. On the eve of a national holiday, we begin with a national tragedy. 2 members of the West Virginia National Guard on crime-fighting duty in Washington, D.C., were shot and critically wounded today. They were ambushed just blocks away from the White House. CBS News captured the immediate aftermath of the shooting right there. A suspect was wounded and taken into custody and is now in the hospital. President Trump in Florida for Thanksgiving posted that the shooter will, quote, pay a very steep price. He's ordering 500 more National Guard troops into Washington, D.C. Homeland Security and Justice correspondent Nicole Skanga is following the very latest with this investigation. Nicole, good evening.
Good evening, Jerika. The shooting took place just 2 blocks north of the White House while the president was in Florida to celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday. U.S. officials tell CBS News this was a targeted attack. A horrific scene in broad daylight in downtown Washington this afternoon. 2 National Guard members lying on the ground, shot in what officials describe as an ambush-style attack. Cell phone video shot from above show the moments just after the shooting happened, with first responders on the scene immediately.
The suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm, and discharged it at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring him into custody.
Law enforcement sources say there were 10 to 15 shots fired. The suspect was shot 4 times and remains in critical condition. The 2 Guard members, also in critical condition, were part of the West Virginia National Guard, the governor said. Our prayers are with these brave service members, their families, and the entire Guard community. President Trump called the suspect an animal who will pay a steep price. And according to Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, called for 500 more National Guard members to be deployed inside the city.
That will only stiffen our resolve. We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand.
Over 2,100 National Guard members have been on duty in Washington since the president ordered the deployment in August.
Please send your prayers to those brave warriors who are in critical condition and their families. They are here serving our country. They are here protecting everyday Americans and citizens around the world in our nation's capital. They are the heroes of this day.
Tonight, law enforcement officials say they still don't have a motive for the shooting. The suspect can be seen here being loaded into an ambulance. And at this time, U.S. officials say there's no indication that any other suspects were involved. Jerika?
Yeah, still so much to learn. Nicole Skanga, thank you. The nation.
Y'all, what is the world coming to? Like right before the holidays, this is what's going on. Like, it just seems like nobody is safe. Like, what in the hell is going on? Well, Donald Trump is now deploying more of National Guard to. This is just too much. This is too much. Can we go back to when we didn't have to deal with this shit?
Alert. FBI Director Kash Patel just announcing moments ago that 2 National Guard members were shot in Washington, D.C., and they're both in critical condition. It happened about a mile from the White House. The FBI director saying that this is being treated as an assault on an officer. The suspect is in custody. Let's go right to Mark Meredith. Oh, okay. We're waiting for Mark. So we're going.
Yeah, I'll probably be there in a second.
Yeah.
Scrambling all day.
Okay.
But it looks like there's one gunman coming around the corner. It seems as though they knew exactly. Seeming so he knows exactly what he was doing, Jessica.
Absolutely. We have Mark now. So, Mark, when you're ready.
With you. I'm sorry, guys. I know we're having some communication. I can hear you loud and clear, guys.
Great.
Moments ago, we heard from the FBI Director Kash Patel, who said this was a targeted attack on 2 members of the West Virginia National Guard who were serving in the nation's capital as part of the mission to clean up D.C. This is a mission that has been underway for several months. We have seen Guards members come from all over the country at their governor's orders to deploy these resources, and officials are calling this a targeted attack. Moments ago, we heard from D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, who said this was horrific, that they're deploying all of the resources that she has at her disposal. But what was also very clear about this is that this person appeared to have acted alone, that this wasn't a multiple group attack, but instead one person who was taken into custody, but also was shot. No indication yet what the weapon was that was being used in this attack. But there's also been a lot of confusion, Jessica, about the condition of these 2 National Guards members. If you've been watching Fox all afternoon, like the other media outlets, we reported the news of the governor of West Virginia, Patrick Morrisey, who had said that those Guard members have died. He then retracted that statement on social media, saying he too was getting conflicting information. In a breaking news story, of course, that's to be expected here. But we also noticed in the news conference from moments ago that they did not address specifically the conditions of those 2 service members, but also to mention that the suspect was taken. President Trump has been very active on social media talking about this attack. I was just reading one of his most recent posts in which he said, and this is where I do it in real time for you here, he basically put up and said, that this was a horrific attack, that this animal would be brought to justice, and that he would make sure that the full resources of the federal government would ensure that justice is served. We're also hearing, Jessica, from the entire congressional delegations from all over the country. They're offering their prayers and support, but it has been quite controversial to have these National Guard members in D.C. So far, the lawmakers that I've seen on social media offering statements have instead putting the thoughts and prayers for those that were injured and not focusing on the controversy of this service to begin with. We are also waiting to see if we'll get any update from the DC hospitals about the conditions. We've been trying to piece together where these service members were taken. The shooting happened just about 2 blocks away from where I'm standing, about 2:45 this afternoon. It was the Farragut West Metro stop. That is a station that has 3 different train lines. Normally on a weekday, you can imagine right near the White House, it would be packed, but because it's a holiday, foot traffic was not nearly as crowded. But there were people who witnessed this, and also from the buildings above. I heard from a source who was able to send me some of the photos from what they could see from their vantage point from up high, and all you could see was a sea of shattered glass because of the amount of gunfire that was exchanged, not only between this gunman who took down these 2 service members, but also the responding officers, the responding National Guard members that were able to get this person into custody. In terms of motive, we do not know yet, except again that they're calling this targeted. They are making it indicative that this was not something that was completely random, but we don't have that motive yet or an idea of what necessarily all the charges that person will eventually face if and when they get out of the hospital. Jessica?
Yes, so we have some sound from J.D. Vance from a little while ago that I'd love to play.
It's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them.
So that was exactly the right sentiment. It was good to hear from the vice president, and you see that being echoed from members of both parties and the various delegations. Mark, what did you make of what J.D. Vance said?
Absolutely. The vice president taking time as he was actually on the ground at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, to thank service members for what they're doing, taking the chance to pay his respects and thanks to those service members that are out there. And Jessica, I think the other caveat to all this is that this is not going to deter the Trump administration, they say, from continuing this mission of trying to clean up and send a message that the nation's capital will be protected. Secretary Hegseth saying today that they're going to send even more resources to make sure that people know that D.C. is going to be cleaned up and that these attacks on service members will not be tolerated. How quickly we'll see those additional deployments, we just don't know yet. D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser, who we heard from at the news conference, has had to walk a fine line here from supporting cleaning up the effort to clean up D.C., but also whether or not people will actually want to see the National Guard troops on the streets of D.C. She just announced yesterday, Jessica, she's not even going to run for re-election. It's been quite a controversial year here in D.C., but across the aisle from House members, senators, we are seeing thoughts and prayers pour in for these people that have put their lives on the lines to protect the nation's capital.
So,
Jessica.
Mark, let me ask you, when you walk around D.C., is it pretty understood where the cops are, Border Patrol agents, and where the National Guard is? For example, do they have similar assignments, or are they just randomly
Brian,
walking
I
beats?
spot the National Guard all throughout D.C. You'll also see them wearing HSI vests, like high security incident, people that you could tell are directed just to help out with this federal mission. I saw them last time I saw them was on Sunday evening. I live near H Street, which is kind of a popular corridor here in D.C. Around 5 o'clock, I saw 3 of them walking. I even thanked them for their service because there's been all these questions about how long this will go on for. They're away from their families on a holiday weekend. But you do, if you are in a high traffic area of DC, H Street, metro stations, Union Station, which is our big train station here, you will see them. Right when the deployments happened, we saw a number of protests. We saw a very small amount of people that would say they were going to bang pots and pans and say, we don't want you here. I haven't seen that lately. Instead, DC residents, and again, I am one of them, have come to terms to accept that these people are here to do a job to protect the rest of us. And obviously, these people are not going to be going away anytime soon. Whether we see additional changes to their security posture, do we see, Brian, people with more weapons? We don't know yet, but they're going to see a surge of additional troops coming from, I imagine, not just West Virginia, but all across the country. Brian.
I guess, 500 more.
Yep. Mark, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You bet.
So we want to take this around the table. A truly heartbreaking day, and hopeful that the 2 National Guard members who are in critical condition are going to make it through. We have Thanksgiving tomorrow. Really puts all of this in perspective. They're supposed to be at home with their families. Guy, DC is home for you too. You were there just this morning on your way to come up here to join us. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's heartbreaking, that's right, but it's also sickening that this would happen. And it would be sickening any day of the year, but especially right before such a family-centric holiday. It's just so senseless. And when the initial reports came out, and it's always important to be careful and not get over your skis. We still have a lot of questions here that need to be answered, but it felt like 2 different guardsmen getting shot made the likelihood of this being random very low. And then getting the confirmation in that press conference, this was a targeted attack. That is outrageous. It is infuriating. And there will be a discussion in this country about the policy to have the National Guard deployed in DC. There are questions that could be legitimate about whether this is sustainable in the long term. I will tell you, living there, working there much of the time, it is indisputable that violent crime is down dramatically because of their presence. Just like Mark Meredith just said, I go out of my way to thank these men and women when I see them out, just because they've been put in this position and they've gotten a lot of hostility from some local activists and some politicians. So I want to thank them for their service. And to have something like this happen on a day like this or any day, it just makes my blood boil and my heart sink. And we, of course, join in those prayers for the well-being of these 2 guardsmen who reportedly at this hour are fighting for their lives.
Yeah, we have some sound. I want to play Secretary of War Pete Hegseth talking about extra troops that are going to be dispatched to DC.
President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army, to the National Guard to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. The drop in crime has been historic. The increase in safety and security has been historic. But if criminals want to conduct things like this, violence against America's best, we will never back down.
So we have that response from the Secretary of War, Brian. We also have President Trump weighing in, saying this animal is going to be brought to justice. Rapidly developing story, but what are your thoughts right now?
Well, number one, out of the Border Patrol they could target, out of the cops they could target, out of ICE they could target. They targeted the most well-armored law enforcement officials you can, and that is the National Guard. So I've never seen a National Guard person without a vest on. You know, they look like they're armored up. That's what's the criticism from some saying, well, I don't want that look on my streets. I mean, we don't know what happened, but if these guardsmen are able to survive, maybe it's because they were wearing those vests and were armored up. The other thing is, as this guy comes around the corner, by all descriptions, he was looking for the National Guard. My point to Mark was, did you notice there are a certain area in which they patrol, you might know, Guy, where if a gunman said, I want to go after the National Guard, this is the time to do it.
Metro.
Yeah, the Metro. So you know where the National Guard is and where they're not. So he comes around a corner to shoot 2 National Guardsmen, and there was enough around to quickly neutralize that person if some of the video that we just saw is correct. But overall, I just asked the Brain Room and just about what has happened over the last 4 months since in major cities, the National Guard has been put into play along with the Border Patrol and ICE. And there's an increase in assaults on these agents up 1,115%. And you have these politicians saying they're the bad guys and National Guard doesn't belong here. So anyone on the edge, anyone unbalanced, anyone who feels as though they are getting hurt by this, by having security, I know it's mind-boggling, this is the time to act. On some weird, twisted level, this guy probably feels like he's a hero.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll find out more about what the exact motive was. We do know that it was targeted, obviously. And Brian brings up a kind of political debate that's been going on around dispatching the National Guard to American cities. The DC case is different, though, because Donald Trump is actually in charge of DC versus a Chicago or a Los Angeles. But Lisa, how do you see the political debate at this moment? And where do you think it goes from here? Because I would imagine at just the time when we need the temperature to come down, it's about to get a lot hotter in here.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all sick to our stomachs right now. Right before Thanksgiving, I pray for these guardsmen that they survive. I pray for their families right now, who are probably hoping to, maybe see them tomorrow for Thanksgiving. And now they're fighting for their lives. I mean, look, the whole reason President Trump federalized the DC police and deployed the National Guard was because we saw a series of high-profile crime incidents in Washington, D.C. 2 Israeli embassy staffers executed in cold blood. You had a congressional intern murdered. You had a Democrat member of Congress, an armed carjacking that happened to him. Senator Rand Paul had a staffer who was stabbed. So that's why President Trump ended up federalizing the DC police and also deploying the National Guard. But it's also soft on crime policies that have been led by Democrats in places like Washington, D.C. And I'm sorry, but I'm angry because I'm tired of those enforcing law enforcement having targets on their backs. And you can go back to Ferguson in 2014 with the whole hands up, don't shoot lie with Michael Brown that, by the way, President Obama helped push, that sort of appended our criminal justice system that turned criminals into victims, victims into criminals. And then that same playbook got extended to ICE agents and Border Patrol as well. They were called the Gestapo. And then now some of these officers and agents have bounties on their heads, Secretary Noem has told us, to be kidnapped or to be murdered as well. We saw attacks and attempted assassination in Dallas. And I'm sad because we're being told now that this was a targeted attack against the National Guardsmen. So now is that same narrative being applied to our National Guardsmen as well? So I'm sorry, it's disgusting. We do need to tone down the temperature, but we also need to be honest, and we need to stop, or those on the left need to stop putting a target on the people who put on.
People like her irritate me. The left, the right. Lady, shut up. It is mental people out here that do all kinds of things. This is not a right or a left. I'm so sick of these ignorant people. First of all, if we didn't have an ignorant felon president that was in the White House spewing hate, perhaps, just maybe, we wouldn't be dealing with all of this. Let's kind of like use our common sense. I know a lot of these people don't have common sense, but am I the only one that's sick of this left, right shit? I mean, it's exhausting. It's very exhausting. But they're saying that this possibly happened from a window. Look at this right here. They're saying that the suspect could have shot from a window.
Shot from an office building from an upper window. You can see the glass is broken out. You can see what believes to be police officers struggling with someone, and also what could be a victim. You know what, we just don't know. You can clearly see the broken glass there that probably was shattered as a result of the shooting. Again, this.
But definitely looks like National Guardsmen involved,
Absolutely.
Perhaps transit police, even a citizen just in plain clothes responding to the scene. And, we don't want to get into too much detail. It just looks like somebody is helping either the victims?
It looks very much like it looks like you can see one victim down in camouflage. And then I believe where we're seeing all those officers on top, it looks like that's where that's very much looks to me like they're putting that person in cuffs.
This was clearly shot from an office building from an upper window. You can see the glass is broken out. You can see what believes to be police officers struggling with someone. And also what could be a victim. You know what, we just don't know. You can clearly see the broken glass there that probably was shattered as a result of the shooting. Again, this.
But definitely looks like National Guardsmen involved,
Absolutely.
Perhaps transit police, even.
Well, guys, so from what they're saying, it looks like these guys are in critical condition. So hopefully, you know, send a prayer to them. Hopefully they survive. I mean, it's the day before Thanksgiving. This is extremely, extremely sad. I just wanted to jump on here. They haven't really said much, or I haven't really seen much more with regards to the guards that were, you know, injured and taken to the hospital. But it seems like, you know, that they're going to send more troops out there. So hopefully, you know, this is really sad. So y'all need to pray wherever you go. It seems like this entire country is, everything is just crazy. So be safe. And I'll see y'all later.